you heard of it. And you're going to start hearing about it a lot more lately. But what leaky gut is a condition to where your gut is actually literally leaking good and bad bacteria that's going into your bloodstream and your body's starting to attack itself. And before you leave here tonight, you have a handout that I want you to take notes on. I want you to look at it because this is the premise, the basis for a lot of different diseases. So look at this right here if we move forward. Okay, what is leaky gut? Another term for a leaky gut, and when you look at it from the medical before, they call it intestinal permeability. And what intestinal permeability is when the permeability of the intestine lining is actually messed up. And so stuff can permeate through it and get into your body. A lot of people think that you get sick by if you don't wash your hands or if you get cut or something like that. The number one way that you get sick is from your gut. And when stuff gets into your body, that's the fastest way that stuff gets into your bloodstream. And what we're starting to realize in science and in medicine and in health is that the number one leading cause of a lot of diseases is because of this process is happening in chronic terms over the course of years in people's body, and then they're actually developing all these different chronic conditions. And it's like, oh, all of a sudden they got lupus. All of a sudden they got rheumatoid arthritis. All of a sudden they got these other diseases. So what happens, it all starts with these little things called tight junctions. Before we do that, I want you to turn your attention to this. I want to draw something for you because this stuff is so new that it's hard to find a picture of it on the internet. So I had to actually show you. And so how can I make it to where my people can understand it? Like this is actually something that we heard of, but we don't understand. So how can we make it so we understand it? So your digestive system is broken down into two parts, or like mainly 3 or 4 different parts. It starts with the mouth. When you start chewing food up in your mouth, if you don't chew food up properly, it's not going to be digested properly. It's going to put more stress on the digestive system. So the number one part is when you have the enzymes in your mouth to actually help break it down. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people say that you should not what when you eat? Drink. You should not drink anything while you eat because what it does is it pushes the enzymes to help break the food down. You can eat after, you can drink after you eat or drink before you eat, but it's not really good. If you have to drink something to wash food down, you're not chewing it enough properly. Does it make sense? That's the number one thing. This is a very simple way to understand. Then it goes down to the esophagus. That's when it starts, some of the acids start to come up and start to break the food down. Now, if you eat a big healthy meal and all of a sudden you feel like you're having a heart attack, majority of the time sometimes it's acid reflux or GERD, what some people can have. And that's where the acid is so much and so high, the acid level in the stomach is starting to come up. There's certain things that can cause that. We're going to talk about that too. And then it goes down and it passes a pyloric sphincter, which some people can get a condition called H. pylori that can cause a lot of problems. Then it goes into the stomach. Acid can be high in the stomach or it can be low in the stomach. I'm going to talk about that. Then it goes into the intestinal tract. Goes into the small intestines, the large intestines, and out to the colon is the transit process. Now, in that last part where I talked about is where you get majority of your nutrition from, in the intestinal tract. So when it's going down through the intestinal tract, and then your body starts to break down. So in the intestinal tract, you have a canal that's usually like this. So when they do an endoscopy, they actually look through a tube and they actually looking at these microvilli in your intestinal tract. So in your colon, they might see polyps that could be blocking. They might see all different kinds of stuff. You can develop a condition where you get outpouching of the colon to where you get a sac, and that's what we call diverticulitis. That's another condition that can actually affect you. So what happens in that right here, you have these things that are lining your intestinal tract like this. Whether it's the small intestines or large intestines, and they're supposed to be tight junctions right in between them. That's what I got on this slide right here. So these tight junctions, what they do is they actually allow good stuff to go through and the bad stuff to be filtered out into the waste. You follow me? So this is how that works. These tight junctions, they regulate what goes in and out of the small intestinal thing. So it's lined with good bacteria called normal flora or flora. That good bacteria is what keeps us kind of healthy. Keep the gut healthy, we can fight stuff off. Now when you let these tight junctions get damaged due to different things, then you got all kinds of stuff going all in here, and then that goes into the bloodstream. When that goes into the bloodstream, it causes these cells right here called T regulatory cells. They go haywire and they fight off, they produce more inflammation. When you walk around with chronic levels of inflammation, it's going to cause problems in your body. When it causes problems in your body, it can show up as lupus for you. It can show up as rheumatoid arthritis for you. It can show up for cancer for somebody else. It can show up for diabetes for somebody else. And it can show up for all these other things. And that's what they're starting to think. This is the basis of functional medicine. And so this is a very, very important thing right here to understand what that happens. So with these tight junctions, if we look at this right here, when the conditions get stuck and too many things go, so undigested food, bacteria, it creates this stuck condition called intestinal permeability, which is called leaky gut. You follow me? Now, with this leaky gut, this is a good example of what normal looks like. I don't know if everybody can see this. This is what normal looks like. So you have an inner mucosal layer and you got an outer mucosal layer, so it keeps all the bad stuff out and only lets the good stuff in, like the antigens, and then you got the CD3, you got the T-reg cells, they reduce the inflammation, and so everything is green, so it's a go. Now in a bad, where you got a petri bed, this is how they created this. This is what I'm talking about with these tight junctions. Now when that layer gets broken down, that mucosal layer, because of certain stuff that we do, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, now it makes it easier for all this stuff to come down in here and seep right into that body, and it produces inflammation. Very, very important process. This is one of the reasons why leaky gut became so popular, because you started seeing people with a rise in all these autoimmune diseases. Like all of a sudden, all these autoimmune diseases came out of nowhere. I can tell you in the last 4 months, I've probably had 6 to 7 people come in and diagnosed with lupus. And I tell you, one of the reasons why this stuff is happening is because they're coming in with knee pain. They're coming in with wrist pain. They're coming in with pain out of the blue, right? And then they're saying like this, and the only way that you can really tell is you go get a blood test, and you got all these other tests that you can do to tell if you got it. But the blood test, if you got certain things that show up in it, it's going to say, man, this is positive for lupus, or it could be rheumatoid arthritis, which is commonly confused, or it could be all these other things. And so what's happening is I'm treating these patients, and they're not getting better. So systemically, there's something else going on inside the gut. And so I started digging deeper into it, and I started doing the research, and this is how I got to that point. And I'll share my story about how I got introduced to the functional medicine world in a little bit. But as we look at this, how did we get here is the question. We said, like, Dr. Artis, so how does all this happen? Let me tell you how this happens. Number one, your diet. Number one way that a lot of stuff happens to us is how we eat. I would almost go as far as to say the majority of all diseases is coming from what we eat. You're looking at from cancer, high blood pressure, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, all these different things. Now, this is diets high in sugar. People that drink a lot of alcohol can destroy that gut lining. Also, processed foods. These are foods that you see in the inside of the grocery store when you walk down the aisle. These processed foods were actually not designed to sustain a good, healthy lifestyle. You got to eat foods that's going to spoil. That means it's got some good in it. Because now nature wants it to keep it moving, so it's going to degenerate. And then you got processed animal fats. That's another one. Processed animal fats, I'm talking about like your beef jerky. I'm talking about your pot belly. You know, these are different things like that. I'm talking about Popeyes. You know, all these things and all that stuff that we do. Second one thing that happened right here, and I will put this diet number one, stress number two. You got sympathetic nervous system and you got parasympathetic nervous system. A lot of times, this is where this comes into play right here. Parasympathetic nervous system is when we go over fight or flight. That means if something is chasing you, you're like this. The problem is, we live in Chicago. Something is always chasing us. And as these things right here, you're like, you gotta go. I gotta go here. I gotta go here. So we don't spend enough time in the parasympathetic state. That's where your body repairs itself, and it starts to repair and digest the food that happens in the inside. Does it make sense? So, sympathetic nervous system does what? What does sympathetic nervous system do? Fight or flight. What did I just say? Sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight. Say that with me.
Fight or flight.
Parasympathetic nervous system is rest, repair, and digest. Rest, repair, and digest. That's why it's important that you sleep. What are most people doing at the hospital? Sleeping and resting. Why? They're putting them in a parasympathetic state so their body can rest, repair, and digest. Let me tell you, we serve an awesome God, and I believe that God can actually design our bodies so that we can heal if we do the right things. There's no way you can be healthy if you do not sleep. Number one. So all y'all falling asleep in the bed with those iPads and those cell phones, and then you watching TV, you got to sleep with the TV on. Cut all that stuff off and try to spend time with God in that parasympathetic state. Stay out of that sympathetic state. Sympathetic state is good if somebody's chasing you. Not when you're worried about the news and what's going on. The third way, and one of the biggest ways right here, is medications. Medications is so, so important. These are your antibiotics. What do antibiotics do? They kill bacteria. But they kill everything. It's antibiotics. They kill everything. So what antibiotics are the number one reason that they destroy the gut lining as far as medications. The second one is the proton inhibitors, which is antacids. Y'all popping the Tums, the Prilosec, the purple pill for the GERD. Change the way you eat. If you're eating something and it's causing a lot of acid reflux, you should not be eating that food. I don't care if you grew up on it, your grandma Sally did it, all this stuff like that. You got to stop eating that food. The antacids, they actually decrease the amount of stomach acid, and that causes malabsorption. So even if you do eat the good, your body won't absorb the nutrients. Does this make sense? Now we got the last one. This is a big one. You're going to see this happen a lot later. Herbicides. What do you mean by herbicides? Poison. Well, they spray that poison on all of our foods. They do a lot of different things. The number one we got is glyphosate and gluten. Glyphosate is found where? Yes?
It's from Roundup. And the reason it's
Roundup.
so popular is because they used to get 2 crops a year, but now when they spray it with Roundup, they get 3 crops a year, which includes all our grains.
So it cuts in it. That's what made gluten and wheat so bad, because of the point where that turns around and it's homogenized. And then we got that. They're doing tests now, and they're testing organic food and finding glyphosate on. They're finding that in everything. And so it's to the point where now you're starting to see labels that say glyphosate free. Look, pay attention to the labels. This is one of the number one reasons for cancer. That guy just had that $287 million lawsuit against Roundup. He was just an engineer spraying for weeds at the school in California. And he got some kind of, I don't know what kind of cancer it was specifically, but these are different things right here, and this is in our food source. This is why everybody's getting sick. This is why people are getting allergies and stuff that never had it before. So you got to pay attention to this. So how did we get here? That's how we got there. Now, one of the things that where it starts is enterobacteria, and I left the O out right here, but don't hold it against me. But what happens is when that gut lining is damaged, it lets a gram-negative bacteria slip through the gut. The reason why I put that gram-negative bacteria in there because it's hard to really get rid of a gram-negative bacteria. I came from the research world with petri dishes and all those different things like that. So when that gram-negative bacteria comes in here and it gets through this nervous system and it goes through, it'll start to bind along the lining of here. It'll tear the lining of the stomach up. How many of y'all ever been in another country and you drank some water that you weren't supposed to?
Oh no, I knew not to drink.
How many of you been to another country, you ate something? How did you feel?
Terrible.
It was coming out.
Like I was going to die.
Right. Because what's happening is it was too much of something that you weren't exposed to. And then it got into this area right here, and it tore the lining of that stomach up. And then when it tears the lining of the stomach up, the body's trying to get rid of it. So that's what causes the diarrhea. So sometimes it's not always good to get rid of diarrhea. Your body's trying to get rid of something. The thing what you got to look at with diarrhea is you don't want to be dehydrated. Okay? Good question. You have a question? Oh, so we got this thing right here. This is called a microbiome. So if we go these things right here, that forms what we call endotoxins. That is AKA lipopolysaccharide. I'm not going to get on that right here. It causes an inflammatory response. But how does it get there? It gets there through the tight junctions and those different levels of the body. Now, an overgrowth of bacteria in that pass through that's called endotoxemia. Endotoxemia is responsible for cancer, diabetes, type 2 diabetes. Now they got a type 3 diabetes. Y'all know that? Y'all heard of type 3 diabetes?
Yeah.
Be on the lookout for it. They've been talking about it for the last 5 years. You knew it. Oh, she's a prophet. The bloodstream, we got all these different things, but these are the different things right here that we're starting to see a lot of. Type 3 diabetes is associated with dementia, where you start getting that mental fogginess. And that's where you got chronic levels of insulin floating around in the bloodstream where the insulin is resistant. Remember I talked about that when we talked about metabolic syndrome on the last workshop. So with metabolic syndrome, that's what our goal is here, is to help get rid of that, especially in our community, because we got so many people that suffer from it and they don't know they're suffering from it. As we recap on that last workshop with metabolic syndrome, what is metabolic syndrome? Well, you got 3 out of what 5 indicators? Y'all remember? Number 1 is if you got an elevated blood pressure over 120/80. Elevated blood sugar level, anything over 100 after fasting. High cholesterol or HDL cholesterol, which is the high density or low density cholesterol, which is that's low. Blood fasting, anything over 150. And then when you got women, the good cholesterol is low. Women's could be a little bit lower, and men's a little bit higher. Women just have it harder when they're regulating that because their bodies just go through so much changes with cycles and stuff like that. And then when you got a waistline for women over 36 and for men over 40. If you got 3 of those 5 things, you have what we call metabolic syndrome. It's not a fact of when something is going to happen, or if something's going to happen to you, it's a matter of when. And that's when you're talking about heart attack, stroke, all those different things like that. And that's what we're suffering from. Now, when you're talking about these things right here, they're the precursor to a lot of these things. Heart disease, lipid problems, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, dementia, cancer, polyovarian cystical syndrome. What this is this is a condition that's rampant right now with our teenagers. These girls are getting their cycles and they're eating way too many carbs, and their lifestyle has changed so much to the point where they're insulin resistant. That means that they're almost like one step from being a type 2 diabetic. One of the classic ways that you see it is with that dark ring around the neck. If you got that ring around your neck, that's in African Americans, that's where you start to develop more pigment around the neck. Doesn't mean you didn't wash the neck. It means that your blood sugar levels are too high. No, yeah, that's what we thought growing up. Now that means you ate too many chips and Oreos and different things like that. Non-fatty liver disease. This is a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. People are developing these different things because they're eating way too many processed animal fats, and it doesn't always have to come from alcohol. You know, we always associate liver problems because they drink too much and stuff like that. But what you're starting to see now is we're eating too much fat back. You're eating too much fatty foods. The skin on certain chicken that we shouldn't eat, that's got all that fat in it, is causing a lot of problems. It's affecting that liver. And you can't live without a liver. And liver can regenerate if you get it developed and caught fast enough, okay? Now, it's not me just talking here. So one of the things that my goal is this year and to do more presentations is actually incorporate more research in it. So with this right here, this is all research showing the impact on gut microbial inflammation, obesity, and metabolic syndrome. This right here says gut microbiome has recently been recognized as a key environmental factor for metabolic disease, gut microbiome, and endocrine organs. You know, the crosstalk, homeostasis is interrupted. Lipopolysaccharide disease, all these different things happening. Dysbiosis in the gut and microbiota disease. You know, stress induces endotoxemia, increasing barrier permeability. I mean, it can go on. It's leading to all these different kinds of diseases. I won't even get into some of this stuff, but how many talk about anxiety? You know, that's one of the things that I see a lot of people coming in here a lot with. They're suffering from anxiety, whether it's a spouse, a job, it's peer pressure. You got anorexia, depression, cognitive decline, depression, you know, loss of memory and recall. You know, how many people come and forget their keys? It's like you don't feel as sharp because what's happening is you got high levels of insulin that's starting to affect the brain. That's the early stages of what they're considering that type 3 diabetes. And most people, when they have it, and Janelle, you were vouch for that. When you were doing a house visit, what will you see? Type 2 diabetes, and next thing you know, they would develop dementia.
Yeah, uncontrolled blood sugar, for sure.
Especially. So all you diabetics, borderline diabetics, you really have to pay attention to this, and you really got to get this under control. And it all can be controlled by diet. It all can be controlled by diet. Hypogonadism with men, low testosterone. You know, these are different things that can happen just from the gut. You know, the lack of desire, autoimmunity. What's when you start developing these autoimmune diseases? Now, how do we do it? So what we have is we have a 5R framework protocol on how to develop it, and that's what we get into the last part right here. Now, remove, replace, restore, repair, and rebalance. We're going to go into that a little bit extensively, but I really want you to pay attention to this because this is critical process in which some of you are going through this with me and you're in right now. But there's 4 other levels if you're in one of them that you got to get through to get to that point where you're rebalancing, restored. So with that 5R framework, the restoration, the gut restoration. And by the way, tell me too, is this, can you understand what I'm saying? Like I wanted to make sure that everybody, because especially nobody's talking about this right now in our community. And last things, we're the last people to usually get this information. And so when we look at this stuff right here, we got to remove certain foods from our diet. We got to remove the stressors from our diet that's causing these different things. The way that we do it here is a process called elimination diet. Some of you, I've tried to put you on an elimination diet, but due to your lifestyle and your family functions and grandma's cakes and collard, all these different things, you cannot put this stuff down. So these are the foods that are actually causing allergic reactions, parasites, problematic bacteria, yeast. You know, the elimination diet is the golden standard across the board with functional medicine practitioners in doing that. Okay? So one of the things that you got to look at is that you might not even know that you have leaky gut cells. You might not have any of those symptoms up there. But what you might have is you might have bloating every time you eat or drink water. You might have gas. You might have that kind of gas that's like terrorizing. You might have to the point where you might have irritability every time you eat. Or you might feel a certain way after you eat. Those are all signs that's showing up, but your body's kind of filtering it in different ways. So that's showing signs that we need to remove those foods. Number one purpose of the elimination diet is to identify the triggers that are causing the reactions that you get. The second purpose of the elimination diet is to reduce the inflammation in the body. And the third way to do it is to actually help you to get the inflammation down so that you feel better. And that's why it's so important to do that. But I don't care if you reduce all these things into things, because you got people that eat really good. But what's happening is they haven't controlled their stress. You have to deal with the stress level. You have to make sure that you're getting the right amount of sleep. You got to make sure that you're increasing the right amount of stress like exercise, and you're decreasing the less amount of stress like worry. And those are the things that can actually happen. Now the second thing is we got to replace those things. I'm not talking about now we eliminate all this stuff for 3 to 6 weeks. Some people right here, they have to stay on the elimination diet 2 to 3 months. Some people go on it 6 months. You take your chronic level people, you talking about I'll put them on it 6 months. I just met a young man. I met a young man's mother, and I met the young man. He's now a teenager, 18-year-old. 16 years this lady went with this kid trying to get this stuff done. Now this kid is eating, he's healthy, strong young man, but it took him that long to heal his gut lining. And it was all because of the lifestyle of the mother when he was born. She was eating all these different things, drinking all these different things, and next thing you know, that passes right over to the baby. So that's how a lot of these kids develop this stuff. They're born with weak immune systems, and they never develop properly. So now when we replace them, we're not talking about replacing that. What we're trying to do is replace the digestive secretions. We want to help you with digestive enzymes. We want to replace those with ones that you're missing so that your body can break down the good food. Because guess what? You got certain things like bile acids that require proper digestion. If you get your how many of y'all have your gallbladder taken out? I mean, nobody don't want to say that, but a lot of people have their gallbladder taken out. When you have your gallbladder taken out, you're missing certain things that actually help to prune and make a healthy gut. You're missing bile acids that actually come in and help the actual gut to break the body down, the stuff down so that you can actually use it for energy. And so when you look at these things right here, it may be compromised due to diet, medications, disease, aging, and other factors can actually replace your bile acids. That's why some people can't eat certain stuff when they get older that they used to can eat, because your body don't do it. And then if you get called I didn't even pronounce that, but what that means is that's too low a stomach acid. Some people don't produce enough stomach acid, so their body don't break down food. And that's what happens when you look at it. Their bowels won't be always processed down. And then you get malabsorption to where your body, you can eat some of the right things, but if your body is not in the right environment, you're not going to absorb the right nutrients. That's one of the things why it's very important to look at those things. Now, with this right here, now once we get through that, we got to restore back to the things. And what I'm talking about restore is we try to create a good ecosystem inside the gut. But when I'm talking about the gut, you got Sally Smith here like this, and then you got down in the digestive system, and then you got this area right here to where we do all this digestion, and then you got an area where you eliminate, and then you got the legs, and you got the arms and the hands, right? So this area right here is what we call the first brain, and this is the second brain. This area right here is we have to restore this lining. And how we restore it is with probiotics and prebiotics. How many of you heard of, I know you heard of probiotics. How many heard of prebiotics? You never heard of prebiotics? Prebiotics are things like garlic, beets. These are fermented foods that you need to eat every day. Like one of the things I was a big fan of is like pickled beet juice. That's fermented. When you do pickles are fermented, you got certain things that are fermented, they stimulate a good healthy growth bacteria inside the system. Now probiotics are things that's actually gonna, the friendly bacteria that establish that. You get that from like yogurt, that helps to balance the gut flora. Now, prebiotics, they stimulate that. That's where you get garlic, leeks, onion, you know, tofu, flax, oat, barley, all those things, but they have to be fresh forms. They have to be very good forms of it. And I can talk to you more about that individually. I just don't have time to go into it in detail. Janelle, do you have any more suggestions that you think of as far as like prebiotics?
Prebiotics is, I'll say all of us in our home have garlic and onions usually as our basis for any of the foods that we're gonna put on the stove. Another thing that I just saw recently, I'm lactose intolerant, so they have a almond cashew blend milk that also has prebiotics in it now. It's a Silk brand, part of the Silk brand, and I think that that's pretty good. It has 10 grams of protein. And so if you're lactose intolerant, some of the things you might not be able to do, like the tofu. I'm soy intolerant as well, so you might not be able to do the tofu or the yogurt. And so having to go get supplements like the milk, the almond milk or something like that, they are now fortifying that with prebiotics. So yeah, I mean, some of these things we already do, but it's always good to have a little bit more and becoming aware of these products. So if you have any questions about those specifically, I can help with that.
Now, one of the things, yes, sir.
What about like kimchi?
That's another one.
Kimchi's gonna be your probiotics. That's a fermented food.
Okay.
And that can be found for anybody that's not familiar with it, it's like a Japanese cabbage. It's fermented, but it's like has a red color to it. Tastes pretty good. Kind of has like a sauerkraut type of feel to it. And I eat it straight out the glass. But yeah.
I love artichokes. It's one of my favorites. Garlic and beets. I'll get all that on pizza. And I do pizza with no cheese and like a gluten-free bread. And so you can still have certain stuff, but you're just not doing it the Illuminati's way or Papa John's and all that stuff. You know what I mean? You're doing it, you're making your own pretty much. And you can get gluten-free, you can get like a cauliflower dough, and you can roll it up, and you can put your own fresh organic tomato sauce on it, and you can dress it up however you want it. And you find something you like, you can incorporate all this into one meal, is what we're saying. And that's one of the things that I found has really worked with myself. And just because I'm walking the stuff with you, just going through this stuff and doing it. Yes?
You mentioned drinking beet juice or something. What is apple cider vinegar good for?
Apple cider vinegar is good for, it creates more acidity or alkalinity in the body. So the body tend to be acidic. No.
Oh, okay.
It could be considered a probiotic because especially with the mother in it, but you know, it helps to kind of, the good bacteria in the gut lining, which is more like a probiotic, but a prebiotic is usually considered more so with food. When you're talking about probiotics, one of the things I want you to say is for daily recommending a probiotic, I recommend about 15 parts per billion, and that's different strands of bacteria that you're exposed to in the lining for a daily use. But if you're doing something that's extreme use, that's why you got to do it with a professional. So I'm seeing a lot of take notes, but don't try to go out and do this stuff yourself because you might not get the income, the outcome that you want because you don't know what their stuff means. So some people go out and they'll get the highest dose of probiotics and they end up sick. And one of the things that I want to say too is that depending on your individual conditions, probiotics are not for everybody. Some people don't need to take probiotics. You need to do something else. And that's one of the things that I look at, but this is just a basic part of the 5-bar program that we do in restoring leaky gut and dysbiosis. When I'm talking about the two things, and I want to make sure I clarify this too, leaky gut is where the intestinal permeability. It leaks through the gut and it goes into the bloodstream. Dysbiosis is an overgrowth of bacteria inside the intestines. SIBO is another condition that's another level down, and that's where it's just overgrowth of the small intestinal bacteria. Small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, what they call SIBO. Dysbiosis, the whole intestinal area, the microbiome, is overgrowth with bacteria, yeast, and all these things. the thing I want to mention with that too, when you talk about women, especially women that develop yeast infections, and they start to develop UTIs, a lot of different things. Obviously, there's something going on with your body there where it's causing that to happen, and you might develop a lot of these different things. So that's why it will be very important that you pay attention to the probiotics and the prebiotics. Garlic kills anything. You can let garlic out. I mean, it kills vampires. It keeps bad people away. I mean, you just eat some garlic and you don't want to talk to somebody. It's, hey, how you doing? It's all good. And then the fourth thing we got to look at is we got to repair. This is the process right here where it takes the longest. This is the rejuvenation of the gut lining. So now we're actually trying to tighten these tight junctions up here so that we can actually cause that process to work. So when these tight junctions get tighter, they help filter stuff from the inside and outside. That's what we're trying to strengthen. That's the basis of a lot of these different things. So what happens with this right here, we do this by supporting it with different ingredients like zinc, antioxidants. One of my favorite antioxidants in the golden standard, which your body produces some of it, but you need that help with the way that we're exposed to so many different toxins, is glutathione. Glutathione is one of my favorite. I take it every day. I take about 5 ounces a day, and I do it through a syringe, orally through the mouth. And man, I'm telling you, it's like taking something that's going to actually help to regenerate. Like people always talk about antioxidants for the skin and looking good. You want your insides right, and this is helping to regenerate that and help build that. Glutamine is an amino acid. That's another one. You can actually get that and take it. The glutathione I take actually produces glutathione, and then you got fish oil. And one of the biggest ones that we need to do, and we need to get more of, is short chain fatty acids. That's the SCFA, short chain fatty acids. What they do is they actually help to convert stuff over into the body. They make it so that the good bacteria can pass through here and go through there. When you don't eat enough of those short chain fatty acids, it actually damages that tight junctions. That's how we get that damage as well. Does that make sense?
What are short chain fatty acids?
Short chain fatty acids are short chain fatty acids. They're actually fatty acids that we actually use. So they're coming from certain
You have to
foods.
buy it like in the health food
You
store.
get them from a lot of the meat you eat.
Okay, that's what.
And you get them from different greens.
Okay.
Well, a lot of times is we don't get enough, so you have to buy some. Butyrate is another one that actually helps with that too, to give you the short chain fatty acids. Some of the stuff that what you have in there has short chain fatty acids in it. That's one of the reasons I gave it to you as well. What happens is that actually helps to tighten up those tight junctions, and it helps that process of letting stuff into the cells, into the body that it needs. And it helps this lining. Remember I talked about you had in the gut lining, you have a inner mucosal layer, and then you got an outer mucosal layer. Short chain fatty acids, they help to protect this inner mucosal layer. And what happens is if we don't eat them, it decreases that, and then the outer mucosal layer comes in deeper, and it just gets closer. So all this stuff gets closer to getting into here, and it gets into your body. This is stuff that I'm talking about on a cellular level that actually takes time for your body to repair. Unless you're a really sick and toxic person, you get that stuff out of your system. Yes.
Okay, I have a question about the glutathione, because in my training, the highest concentration of the glutathione is in the eyes. So when I see indicators that people in the eyes,
Okay.
when I see people with indicators that they have poor vision, it tells me their glutathione is
Yes.
low. But, so okay, I'm glad to hear you agree with that. But from what I understand, most of the glutathiones that I've come across and researched on the market, the body's not absorbing.
Right, and that's one of the things why you just can't go and get certain kind. The kind that I use is oil. It's a liquid form. Liquid forms is another way that you can absorb stuff easier. Now you can get glutathione in a pill form as well, but then that's another layer that your body has to do to convert to break it down. Your body does produce it. So whenever it happens with age, that's how you know you're aging. First thing that goes with most people is your eyes. They start to get weaker. You get in the 40s, that's when you go get eyes. You know, I'll be transparent. I'm sitting there watching the game, I can't see the thing. Next thing I know, I started increasing my glutathione, and I can actually kind of see a difference in the last 6 months. But the eyes, they start to get weaker, yes.
I just want to say this, that when I got busy taking glutathione on a regular basis, I could no longer wear my glasses because I couldn't see out of them.
Right.
My vision did improve
Yeah,
dramatically. And I know when you get a good glutathione, it can be a little bit pricey, but But when
Right.
you break it down, the eye exams and all the prices of glasses, you're
Yeah,
saving money.
You're saving money. That's a good point. That's a good point, Ms. Wall. So the last one we got right here is now we got to rebalance it. This is where we got to make it permanent. This is the lifestyle choices right here. So a lot of times people are always looking for something quick fix. They're like, oh, if I take this, if I take that. Listen, I tell you anything with knees. If you got knee problems, you can go get all the shots and gels you want on your knees. If you don't lose weight or exercise and do what I'm telling you, your knees are not going to feel better even if you get a knee replacement. Some people are fortunate enough they do, but 9 times out of 10, the people that I see, both knees are replaced and they still hurt. So it don't even matter. So you have to make lifestyle changes for stuff to be permanent. Same thing when I'm talking about with dealing with the gut. You can't just take the stuff that I'm telling you to take and you don't make the lifestyle changes. Lifestyle changes that I'm talking about are sleep, exercise. You have to watch your stress management. You have to watch your stress management. I can't stress that enough. Because the number one reason for the gut lining to be messed up is stressed out. I give you an example of how you do it when you eliminate it. Clockwork. I get up, I'll be transparent. I get up in the morning like clockwork, use the bathroom. You let me be late. I'm in that fight or flight. Man, I probably won't go until the next day or the afternoon or something because it threw me off. So you have to get a routine together to where you can manage your lifestyle to where you can actually set your body on the right track so it can eliminate and it can actually transform the food properly. Now you look at these things right here. Balancing those things is very important. The number one way that we recommend, and once you get all this stuff down, you reintroduce some of the foods back into your diet, is the Mediterranean diet. Hands down, those people drink wine, they eat bread, they do all this stuff, and they're healthier and they're leaner than we are because their stuff is in this process. Some of those Southeastern European countries, even if you look into Switzerland, and now with the Western diet, with McDonald's stuff coming over, they're starting to get other problems. But a lot of times, that Mediterranean diet, a plant-based diet, is good for long-term success. You need to kind of eat more of a plant-based diet. Yes?
What do you think about that, back to 75 meal plan?
That, when you start talking about that, I don't know that much about it, to speak about it. Janelle, do you know anything? Factor 75 meal plan?
What's the premise of it?
It's, oh God, it's glucose free, it's plant-based, it's organic, it's supposed to be really, really healthy, and it tastes good.
Okay.
Now-
So, yeah, for any diet, I think that you really just need to prepare yourself for it and recognize like what you have to give up, because if you have to give something up in a diet, it typically won't work long term. And so I never really recommend diets per
Well,
se.
I don't know if they don't call it a diet.
Okay.
It's, they have like gourmet chefs that prepare these meals, and they change the meals every week. And you can do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or you can just do dinner, you can just do lunches, whatever you want. And you buy like either 12 items or 18 items or however you want. But it's supposed to be really, really healthy.
When you're looking at those different things, though, one of the things that I would say is this. Whenever something is becoming where people need it, it's going to, capitalism in America at its finest. So it's just a way that you can actually market it to make money off of it. You can do the same stuff yourself just by changing certain stuff in your household. People, for what they would charge you for one meal, you could probably make 3 or 4 meals out of with those different things. But one of the things that is getting, I'm a big fan of like more of the paleo, ketogenic diet, depending on what's going on. But this is where Janelle comes in, and this is where she's a clinical nutritionist. This is where you have to have a design plan specifically for you. So whenever we do it, we look at your height, your weight, we divide that stuff in to see how many grams of protein you would need versus how many grams of Mr. Burnett would need are totally different things. And so when you're looking at that, you're giving your body the optimal chance instead of trying to make everybody the same. And that's what the problem with a lot of these different diets are, is they try to treat everybody the same. You got to kind of modify it to meet you as a person. And that's what customization is, because obviously that's not working in medicine, right? With diabetes and blood sugar and cholesterol and all these different things, they treat everybody the same. You come in with a statin, okay, you don't like this, we're going to put you, got blood pressure, we're going to put you on lisinopril. If that don't work, we're going to put you on something else. We're going to put you on this, we're going to put you on, and then we're going to try to figure it out. And then you pretty soon, you stop coming back and you just take it for the rest of your life. That's not the way it works here. the medicines you're on, we need to make a list of them, and we need to look at the side effects of them, and then we need to go to your doctors, and we need to sit down and come up with a plan on how to get off of them. That's the only way that we're going to survive, people, I'm telling you. Because what's going on right now is the price of this stuff is going up, and it's not getting cheaper. And what they're doing is they're talking about cutting a lot of different things. This country is in trouble if you don't know it, and we can't be, all these things. Not only this country, this state. Some of y'all are fortunate enough to retire, and you got pensions, and you got other stuff, and you don't have to work, but it's not always going to be like that. So one of the things that you got to always do is you got to take care of your health. Because if you don't have the money to get medicine, and nobody wants to be sitting in no bed, and nobody tubes coming out of them, and you pooping on yourself. Nah, that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about you being able to walk around with your head up strong and live a life that God designed for you to have. And that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to push this stuff more, and that's where it goes back to these things. We got to address the first brain and the second brain. I mean, I won't go into all this stuff right here, but I'm going to go back through this one more time. You got to remove the foods. You got to replace the food, replace the enzymes in the stomach. Betaine, all these different things. We got enzymes that I can do. We got all these different things that we can get in there. Restore it with prebiotics and probiotics. You got to repair the gut lining. This takes the longest process. This could be 2 years. Do you know you could be 6 months of eating something clean, and you eat it one time, and it's like you're starting back over? That's all it takes to destroy that gut. If one little speck of food gets stuck in that tight junction, it's like it will multiply, it will grow. It will grow in that ecosystem, and we don't want that. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't even take that chance. And then you gotta rebalance it and almost like restore it.